Thank you so much for coming. I am Emily Lanto. I'm the director and curator of the DeVos Art Museum. Before I introduce Orna, I just want to give a few thanks. So I want to thank the Michigan Council for the Arts and Cultural Affairs for sponsoring this event and many other events at the museum. I also want to thank our annual donors. Your annual gifts make programs like this and other programs possible. There is information about museum giving in the museum, so if you're interested in that, it's on the desk. I also want to thank everybody who helped install this exhibition. So we had volunteers and students and staff, and we spent the week installing really heavy works by this amazing artist. So thank you so much for dedicating your time and making this possible. Genevieve Healy is one of those volunteers, and so is Truman Jones. Abby works at the museum, and everybody else who works at the museum. Thank you. So I'm going to get started and introduce Orna, the guest of honor. So Orna Ben-Ami is coming to us from Israel. She has dedicated the last 26 years of her life to art making and her art practice. Her art is about the small things that aren't so small, the small things that come together to create meaning and represent people. Her work is about people, but it's really about individuals and what makes people important and special, and the things that really elevate us as human beings, as individual human beings. She shares experience and honors individuals really in her work. So Orna began her career in the news, and I think that this really does something for her work. I think that her ability to really listen is something that we can all learn from, and you'll definitely feel that in Orna's work. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Orna Ben-Ami.
Thank you, thank you. Oops.
You're welcome. I'm going to dim the lights here. Does that work for you?
Good evening, everybody, and thank you for coming. I would like to share, by the way, I want to tell you, how do I turn the video on?
If you hit down.
No?
Yeah.
Oh, yes, okay. I would like to say that you're not going to believe me, but welding is much easier than speaking, especially in English. So I hope you understand that. Now here is me in my studio, very sexy outfit. I do sculpting in iron, and I don't know if you know the difference, but there is a big difference between creating in clay, let's say, and giving it out to be cast. Casted sculptures are when the metal is becoming a sculpture, they melt the metal and pour it into a mold. What I do is I take the iron, I cut it, weld it, polish it, and then create my pieces by fabricating the pieces of the metal. And it's a big difference than working with clay. So this crazy lady is me, and this is in my studio, and I would like to share my world with you, but to concentrate on how this exhibition, Entire Life in a Package, was born. I will show you a few sample examples from the exhibition with explanation, and then you can go and see the exhibition itself and feel the softness of my iron. Okay, my husband took this video and he was so excited by these sparkles, he didn't stop. Okay, so I'm a woman creating in what considers to be a muscular material, trying to put emotions and feelings and tell a story with the iron. Now, every catalog that I buy tools from, there are no women there on the photos, only men on the catalogs, And they're always standing like macho, like this, on an iron beam. Iron beam. Now, I decided one day to teach them a lesson and made this sculpture that I consider to be my self-portrait. The ballet slipper represent women, and art. And look how gently but stubbornly she's stronger than the iron beam. So this is an example because I mainly sculpt objects that represent people and situations. I hardly sculpt people, figures. And for me, this ballet slipper is a woman and is an artist. In the beginning, whoops, what did I do? Okay, back. Sorry. I tried to show in this material, in my way, femininity as well, and softness, and emotions. So, this is a doll dress, and this is one of the sculptures that I will show you later that I put a lot of my childhood memories in my art. Then I have this that I call silk, and you know, a woman came to my studio and she touched it, and I said, you know, it looks much better on when you wear it, and it's on sale, just try it. So, now talking about childhood memories, my mother had golden hands, and she was used to sew and knit and create with fabrics. So this is one of my memories from my mother and my grandmother. It's all iron. And with plasma, I'll show you later, I cut, there is like fire, I cut all the designs and I put them together, I weld them, fabricate them, weld them together. Now the iron also allows me to make things that stands for itself, even if they are not the whole piece. So I created some minimalistic works, and you can see in the exhibition some of the packages that are just lined out, they're not full. You can see them in one of the works. And this is, you know, everyone saw this thing after all the class is gone, and you're going home. The class is very cheerful and noisy, and you go out and then you forgot something and you come back. There is this silence, and the chairs, except for one naughty child, are on the tables, and this silence means the world is so different after a few minutes that the kids left class. Then I made my library. And you know, one of the things that is important for me is that people will be connected to my works from their own world. And some people will say, books are gone. We're using the tablets now more than the books. It's like a monument for the books. Or it reminds Israelis or Jews the burning of the books in Germany. So you can take it anywhere you want. This is the idea. And my dishes. Now it's 3 dimensions, and it stands for itself, although it's not the whole dish, and you can put in it whatever you feel like. Now my parents, and here I come closer to this exhibition, used to move every year somewhere else, a year and a half. I moved so many times. And before I dealt with the refugees, that what you will see in this exhibition, I had an exhibition I called Permanently Temporary. This was my father. He was permanently temporary. And my mother followed him everywhere. And it's some kind of a trauma, childhood trauma. And I also lost my sister when I was 6. She was 12. and moving is very much connected to death in my soul. So in my psychology, let's say. So this is maybe why I felt very close to the refugees that have to move, and moving is a little bit traumatic, although sometimes you make new friends and you meet see new places. So one of the sculptures that is in the exhibition I called Neither Here Nor There, and I made it many years ago for the temporary exhibition, but it fits perfectly for this exhibition, and this is why it's here. Now this is, Emily doesn't like when I say you can hit it and feel. Give you the permission. It's hollowed. So it's made of, I cut it this shape and I just attached the other parts, and when I wanted to fold this piece of metal, it's big, I invited my husband, my neighbors, we were all lying on it until it folds, and then I made the holes and the buttons. It looks soft, but you know, the softness also shows, because it's iron, it's soft on the one hand, but very tough and difficult to deal with on the other. So I put both into my works, the softness and the hard situations. Now this is also in the exhibition. I call it, it's like 6 years old self-portrait. When I was 6, this is how I looked. I was packed in boxes, moving from one place to the other, or hidden, or maybe no one really saw me. A child that is unseen. This is part of that one. And, I was participating in an exhibition at the President's Residency in Jerusalem. And there was another sculpture that I don't have here in this exhibition, and I was very proud. The President's Residency in Jerusalem. I was standing next to the sculpture with a friend, and I was like a peacock, I welded, I did that. There came one of the ministers of Israel with his wife, and she is you'll understand. She stood like 10, I'm talking meters, never mind. She looked at the sculpture and she said, I'm freely translating it from Hebrew. She says, this is horrifyingly disgusting about my sculpture. So my friend and I were standing like this, and she felt something is wrong, so she got closer and she said, I hope none of you is connected to the sculpture. So I said to her, Orna, no, don't say a word. My friend said, she is the artist. This woman, I started laughing, and this woman didn't know what to do, so I had to save her. And I said, someone is sitting in a concert and says to the guy next to him, he says to the guy next to him, this singer is horrible. He says, she's my wife. Oh, I'm sorry. No, it's not her, it's the music. I composed the music. So, she also started laughing. Then I gave her my card and I said, if you like my sculpture so much, you're welcome to my studio. I have lots of them. So she took the card and ran away, and the next day she called me and apologized. I said, it's okay. It did something to you, it annoyed you. It's okay, it's good. Since then, every exhibition of mine, she's the first one to come to the poor she. Anyway, that sculpture dealt also with moving, but this one was also in the same series, and this I call roots. And the suitcase and the roots, the difference between moving, going, and staying, coming with your suitcase, putting it, and make the roots grow into the ground and stay and be accepted. This sculpture represented Israel in the 60th anniversary of the UN in Geneva many years ago. And this sculpture makes a lot of people tell me, their own story. And it's the Israeli story, actually, when Jews came from all over the world, but at the same time, you can put it in Alice Island. And I think it talks to everyone in his own language. Now, one of the things I do is I sculpt for group exhibitions. And group exhibitions usually have a theme, and either you create into the theme or you bring something from your studio. You have to fit your art to the theme. One of the exhibitions was in Haifa. The theme was open house. I thought to myself, what am I going to create for open house? I didn't want to make a door, keys, windows. I wanted to do something else, and I took the words open house verbally. And I thought, who lives in an open house? And this was the idea. The homeless live in an open house, and if there was an open house to accept him or her, they wouldn't live like this. So I welded piece by piece the quilt, and I already was told that the material is muscular, but the solution is very feminine, because no man would think about, sewing this piece by piece like quilt. Now the challenge is to make the curves going through from one piece to the other and make it soft, and you'll see this sculpture in the exhibition, because it also fits very well with the theme of the refugees and moving. Now, I showed you the video, but I'll show you a few more photos here where I cut. This is plasma cutting, welding, polishing, and this is what I do. And when I go with my dear husband to buy tools for like I'm going to buy a CO2 welding machine. And we're both standing, and I'm asking the guy at the store all the technical questions. And the amperage, the wire, the gas, he answers only my husband. I'm telling you, it's not a joke. My husband is standing there. Do you see, and we feel it between us, do you see that I don't understand what you're talking about? So he says, why did you come to buy a welding machine? I didn't come to buy a welding. She came to buy a welding machine. Please talk to her. My husband is a TV news anchorman, and our children are joking and saying that they have strange parents. Their father has eye infection because of the makeup, and their mother because of welding. So, and at the first time he helped me, he's a big guy with big heart. He helped me move my sculpture from one place to the other in the studio. He stopped at the middle of the studio, sweaty, and he said, tell me something. Origami is not art? What is all this? Anyway, once I had a birthday, and he asked me, what would you like for your birthday? I said, I want a piece of jewelry that I saw at the jeweler's store. And he was working very hard from morning to night. He said, please do me a favor, go and take buy yourself, it's my present. Went to the jeweler, asked him how much is this piece of jewelry. He told me the price. I said, thank you. Left this shop and went to my studio and ordered a crane. What do I need jewelry for? So when my husband came home, he said, where is the jewelry? I said, you bought me a crane. He was crazy. He said, you're the best. Okay. Anyway, I started sculpting on draw on thick material and attach iron object to it. And when there is a story before, but I started, I'll show you this. Okay, this is me, and these are my dresses. I made them in iron, as you see, but I wanted to sculpt on photos. And what I've wanted to do is take family photos and make people disappear and sculpt their belongings, because belongings are reminding us of our beloved that are gone, and this has to do with me losing my sister as well. So it was very emotional for me to do that. And the first photo I took was of my mother and two aunts, my father's sisters. My mother is in the middle. She was so pretty, and I know I look like my father. So this is, and I made them, as you see, I made them disappear, and as they disappear, their belongings are becoming more and more meaningful and important. And this led me to a lot of the works that I have here in the exhibition. But this was the beginning. I developed the technique of printing the photos on thick material, then make the iron piece, weld screws to it, and drill through the photo and close it on the other side. I haven't seen it before, and I'm happy that I do it. I enjoy it very much. This is Gittel. She's from my husband's family, and she stayed in Auschwitz. She died in Auschwitz, and if any of you saw the Holocaust museums, they always have objects, belongings, that somehow make you connected to the fact that there were people there. Because numbers don't speak to us, but those things are connecting us to the people that were there. So this is Gittel. This is in the center my grandfather. This is my grandfather. When friends came to say goodbye when he left Europe, also I faded them out because most of them are gone. And the hats, they all wear hats because they're Jewish. So the hats are it has meaning too. So I sculpted the hats, their hats. Then there are these three ladies. And one more example, it's the uncle and aunt. And you don't see them here, they're so ugly, so I have an argument with my husband whose aunt and uncle they are. They're your uncle. But it's a huge piece that is in New York now in the gallery that I work with, and you see their objects, the belongings, and you don't see them that much. Now I'm moving, I'll tell you about this exhibition. This background is important because it's a layer on a layer on a layer until you get to the idea. I looked at my parents' documents and photos, looked at them, and I thought to myself, whoa, their entire life in a box. Everything that is left is in one box. And immediately it made me think about the refugees, because their entire life they have to take in a package, a box, a suitcase, a backpack, a sack, something. They have to put their hopes for the future, their belonging, memories, and identity, everything into one package and run away. And it made me feel so sad. And what I wanted is to continue Sculpt on photos, which I felt is original. I like doing it. And I looked for photos of refugees. At the internet, you cannot use photos this way. So I contacted news agencies, and Reuters allowed me to use their photos, gave me a permission to get into the website, and there were 13,000 photographs or so. It was crazy. So I decided to concentrate on the last years. I knew this exhibition may go to the UN in New York. I didn't know how much success it will have in the future, but at the UN in New York, I wanted to tell the world the story of the refugees of today. I mean, I wanted to be like their mouth. And I didn't want to go back to the histories, but concentrate on the last 20 years. This is the oldest photo in the exhibition. This lady is from Bosnia, and see what she's taking with her. The pictures in the sack are in the photo. In most cases, I sculpted what was there. And you will see it in the exhibition. It's very difficult to combine 3 dimensions to 2 dimensions. And as you can see, her hands, you get close there to the work. You see the hands are on the photo. This is on top of it, and this is on top of it, but it looks like she's hugging it. It's a big challenge to fit it perfectly to one another. I love this photo. I think the photographer is the real artist in this case. And what I did is I covered the people with the iron. I cut it with plasma by hand, like I was drawing them, and made them like one piece, like a monument. You don't see their identity, you don't really see them, but their identity is reflected, but it's reflected in a puddle. It has a lot of meaning to me. I made it a big piece, and in the UN in Geneva, the general manager of the UN said there are 65 million refugees these days in the world. We treat the refugees as numbers. And what Orna is trying to do is look at them as people. And it was a real compliment for me. This is another one. I played with a little bit with the photos, made them black and white. And I left her with the colors of her clothes. See how sad she is. I love this one. It means a lot to me. Now, at the UN, this exhibition was in New York at the UN in Geneva for the International Refugee Day, and went to 6 museums in Europe, and now it's the 3rd one in Michigan, and hopefully it will go further on. At the end, it will come back to Israel. We show it in Israel. I didn't have enough time to do that. I sent it immediately to the UN in New York because they invited it. At the UN in Geneva, the American embassy, the Canadian embassy, and the UN general manager and Israel ministry, they sponsored the exhibition. And there were speeches, very important, and the flags, and everyone was talking about high things. But this one thing that really touched my heart was a guy who came to me, said, "I'm Aziz from Syria." He hugged me, said, "Thank you." This is what he said. He wrote it, so I'm quoting him. "Thank you for your contribution to humanity." Too big, but this is how he felt. And he said, "I am the uncle of Eileen." I don't know if you know who Eileen is, but when I'll show you this horrible photo, I'm sure you will know. He is this child. Oh, sorry. The story is about, this is a Syrian refugee in a Lebanon camp. But the story about Aziz has the connection to this one. I thought I put it already. So, this is Eileen. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
This shocking photo that showed the world what is happening. I don't think the world did enough. But Aziz is his uncle. And he asked me to wait, and went somewhere and brought 2 photos. One of Eileen's body and one of Eileen playing football. And he asked me to take a picture of both of us next to this work with the child and the door. And it took me time to understand what's happening. You can see in my face, I don't know, I was shocked with this. And then he brought his friends from Syria and Iraq, and they all thanked me for this exhibition. Another experience that I had was in Germany, where a group of refugees from Syria, Iraq, and Afghanistan, and one that said he is Palestinian because his family ran away from Israel to Syria and then ran away from Syria to Europe. They came to the exhibition and they were so excited and shared stories with me. I'll show you in a minute. And it was something to treasure, because when Syrian, that are the biggest enemies of Israel, they're not my enemies. And Israel is really taking care of thousands, silently, thousands of wounded civilians from Syria who are crossing the borders, taken care of in hospitals and sent back because they're not allowed. No one knows that they were in Israel. So these Syrians and Iraqis, they were so excited by this exhibition and thanked me, and it was really something that I will remember forever. Now, this guy, for example, told me like his son and him fell from the boat to the sea and they were saved. And this one remembers this place, and he said, you know, we were standing there for hours, and whenever at the moment we crossed the fence, we knew we are saved. Now imagine me standing in a museum in Germany with a lot of German people around me, and I don't remember their names. This is Fritz, this is Hans, God, I'm bad with names, but I just didn't. And there come a group from my neighborhood, Muhammad, Hussein, Ali, so much easier for me to remember their names and communicate. And they're from the Middle East, so they also look like me a little more. But the point was that I don't speak Arabic, unfortunately, and most of them don't speak English. So what happened was that these people, this Muhammad and Hussein, who came from my neighborhood, spoke German to me, and the Germans were translating it into English. This was hilarious, really. Here, this woman. And now, and you feel that art can build bridges, and it was very dear to me. Now, I also started drawing. You don't see it in this exhibition. And the last one is this. I'm not showing you today the outdoor public sculptures that are another field that I'm active in. I have 44 outdoor commissions in Israel, one in Germany. And this is another thing that you work with your head differently, and you create in huge scale and in factories. So this I'm not getting into. Now, before I let you ask questions, if you want to ask questions, I would like to thank very much Chris Moore, the exhibition manager, Genevieve, that helped us a lot in the installation, Michigan Council of Art and Culture Affairs, thank you very much for making it come true, the donors and volunteers who helped a lot by installing and bringing the exhibition here, and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs that helped me in the beginning move this exhibition. And it's not very obvious. This exhibition doesn't show beautiful Israel. It shows that we care, and they really supported the exhibition, and I really appreciate it. And all the museum staff and volunteers, and the most important, Emily Lentot. Without you, it wouldn't happen. And you really were so patient and helpful. Thank you, Amelia, I love you. And thank you all for coming this evening. Thank you very much. Thank you. Anyone wants to ask a question? Yes, please.
You were very young when you went into the service, the defense service.
I was 18, like every girl in Israel.
Oh, it was required.
Sorry?
It was required for
Yes, in Israel it's a must. Every girl is recruiting unless she's Orthodox. And so I did the service. My daughter, for example, began as an intelligence officer. She was an officer in intelligence, left the service, went and studied social work, and she came back to the service. She's a professional mental health officer in the army. And so I served just the 2 years, and I was a news reporter in the radio. There I met my dear husband. So the army did very good to me. And yes. We don't go to college, we go straight to university after the service, because we finished the service when we were 21 already, somewhere around, and yes, I was in the service. Yes, please.
I was wondering, what is the meaning of working with iron and metal specifically?
I began with silversmith and gold. I made some jewelry. Something attracted me with the metal. I saw a jeweler working, and as a hobby, this is how I began. But then I wanted to move into art, because there you can express yourself much more than in jewelry that is designing. But you know, my mother used to say, "Oh, my little girl is welding." You know, in Jewish families, girls don't weld. So, Jewish Polish families. So I said, "Mom, I had to apologize for what I like to do." I said, "Mom, it's okay, I'm welding. Women also have hands and imagination. Everything is okay." One day someone came to my studio and said, "I think that the iron is in your blood." It made me stop and think about something I didn't think about before. My mother's maiden name was Stoll in Poland, steel. When they changed into Hebrew word name, it was Peled, it was steel. It means that my grandparents were working with iron, with steel, because in Europe they gave the Jews the names by their occupation or the place they're coming from. And I called my mother, I said, "Mom, the genes are from your side of the family. Stop complaining. It's probably in my blood. I can't explain it. I love it, and I know that if I would give someone else do the work of welding, I will never get to the techniques and the language that I developed with the years." And when a welder is coming to my studio, he says, "What is it? I cannot make it." He said, "Because you learned." And I did not. I was working with the material until I got to my feminine language with the material. Yes, so. Yes, please.
So you're making three-dimensional sculptures, but then you're sort of, if retreating is the right word, but you're moving back toward two dimensions, so you're trying to combine.
I'm combining.
Dimensions in two.
Yes.
Is
Yes.
there have you thought about that? Why you want to do that? It's an interesting.
I'll tell you. Thank you for the question. It's you make and then you start thinking. It's. I think I'm bringing the photos alive when I add 3 dimensions. I don't have the example here, but I also sculpted on photos from Kovno ghetto, and these are very old photos, and suddenly you put a bag and it feels like it's the woman who is carrying is coming out of the. But I'll tell you, the beginning of the decision to sculpt on photos was, I'll tell the story. I met a curator of a photography museum that was next to my studio, not far away. I met her, I knew her a little, and I said, "Aya, you see that building? My studio is there. Come and have lunch with me one day." I really invited her for lunch, and she said, "But you know that I'm curating and organizing only photograph exhibitions." I felt so bad that she thought that I'm inviting her for lunch just because I wanted her to curate an exhibition. Between her building and my building, it's like a minute walk. I decided that I'm also going to do something with photographs. This is how it all began. I took that remark of her and the humiliation that I felt, and I used it. And then I developed but I feel that I really trying to bring the photographs alive. Yes. Okay, now you can go to the exhibition. If you have more questions there, I'm here. Thank you very, very much. Thank you, Emily. Yes, you're right. You need it. Yes. It's in your blood here, of course. Yes.